Hey guys, it's Marcelo Nostroza here, the creator and one of the co-hosts of Radio 815. What is Radio 815? It's a podcast celebrating the life and the career of writer-director J.J. Abrams. And I just wanted to let you know that along with my co-host, Matt Crandall, new episodes are posted every Friday at 8:15. So if you love film and TV, and specifically talking about JJ like we do, come and join us, won't you?
Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Radio 815, episode number 7. I'm your host, my name is Marcelo Nostroza, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Matt Crandall. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Felicity, Season 4, Episode 1, entitled The Declaration. Now, with all that being said and out of the way, what did you think about the Season 4 premiere of Felicity, Matt?
I thought it was pretty good. It's, Matt and JJ's final episode that they get the main credits on. So it's monumental in that, and knowing that going into this, they knew it was the final season. So you get a sense of, with everything they do with the characters, that they're trying to move us towards an end game. And what I liked about this was there's a few role reversals in it that make the character struggles a little bit more dynamic. So usually it's Ben who's kind of lost and not knowing what's going on. But in this, Ben has found his calling and he knows what he wants to do, and he's trying to go on the road to do that. And Felicity's plan starts to kind of fall apart, and she has some struggles, whereas she has been more confident in the last few seasons with her chosen path. So that dynamic, and then throwing the wrench into the love triangle, is back in full force by the end of this episode. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice, let's start the final journey with this one that tosses everything up in the air and changes some of our characters' point of view.
The thing that I found so fascinating about this episode is this episode really sets the table for a really interesting final season. Through the journey of Felicity, we understand that she originally came out to New York because she fell in love with Ben. But throughout the course of the subsequent seasons, we've seen Felicity go through some horrible things and some horrible breakups and relationship drama, of course. But like you said, Matt, we've never seen Felicity sort of question her place as to where she's going. And I just love the fact that all throughout this episode, there is this aura of doubt. Mm-hmm. Not just on the surface with Felicity, but sort of on her face. Because in the beginning of the episode, first of all, the thing that I loved about this is that the tapes to Sally, that device is back. I've always been a fan of that. But at the beginning of this episode, and the first couple scenes, the first 3 scenes or whatever, it shows Felicity really questioning herself about its senior year. Like I can't believe I'm here. Like where are we gonna go? Mm-hmm. So it's that uncharted valley that Felicity is facing, and I really like the way that JJ went about presenting that information to us and having Felicity question herself in that way. Also, having her father come back, Mr. Porter, served as a another counter to the fact that Felicity really has to make a decision about what career she wants to pursue, right? Mm. These 4 years in college allowed her to discover the person that she was. It allowed her to get a sense of self-worth. But now we have come to a point where she has to make a choice. Yeah. And I love the fact that by her father showing up, it really forces her to make that choice, and it really emphasizes to us that she's kind of lost, like you stated there.
Hmm. And I thought, her dad coming back gives us some great scenes. Him and her go to dinner, and he had those newspaper clippings about total strangers. She mentions that they all knew exactly what they were doing with their lives, and he's kind of saying, like, why don't you know what you're doing? Like, this art is not a career. You can just do little crafts on the side. And she's like, my passion for this is not little crafts. Like, this is not it. Because her dad just doesn't get it. And I love when she's at that dinner and it's going poorly, and she leaves the table and goes and calls Noel, and Noel gives her like the pep talk over the phone. It was one of the like cute like Noel and Felicity moments where they just have back and forth banter, and he's like, you got this, you can do this. She's like, I can do this, I got this, I do have this. Where your friend hypes you up, even when you are sort of struggling and they aren't even sure if you really are on, solid ground. But Noel does what a good friend does and says, yeah, you're fine, just roll with it. And then for her dad to be like, if you're not gonna do medicine, then we aren't gonna foot the bill, is kind of pulling the rug out from under her at a time where, she is on shakier ground than she has been in the past, with that Professor Cavallo doesn't really see her talent and doesn't think that she should be part of the art program, which throws her for a loop as well. But then to have dad say, well, we're not going to pay for it. And then the coup de grace to add ultimate insult to injury, that scene when the dad finds out that Ben is going to go into pre-med and medicine, and Felicity's like, Jesus, like, Ben, do not tell him this. And Ben's like, sorry, like, I had to. It just came up. It's one of those, oh my gosh, it's the perfect storm of everything going wrong in relation to Felicity's art career versus what her parents want for her.
And to play off of what you just said, I love the scene when Ben first comes back, and when they're in bed together, he actually tells Felicity that over the summer he really made the choice that he didn't want to be an ENT, but he wanted to be a doctor. Yeah. And I love the fact that Felicity doesn't initially go, "Oh my God, I'm so happy for you." She just sort of just lays there. Uh-huh. She doesn't say anything. Like she doesn't throw it in his face immediately, but you could tell that she's kind of, really? Mm-hmm. You want to be a doctor? Where did that come from?
Well, and especially as we find out later in the episode, Ben doesn't really have the grades or the track record for somebody who is going to be able to be a doctor very easily. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's a funny scene where, oh yeah, you'll have no problem getting into pre-med, and then he's talking about the wrong guy.
Right. And also, did you notice that actor is the same actor who played the male attendant in Felicity season 1 when Felicity actually mailed her college essay to Ben by accident? It's the same actor.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. No, and I just like I said, I just think that this episode did such a good job of illustrating that all of our characters are in a point of flux in this point in their lives. And it was so nice to see them be without a rope, essentially, and try to figure out where they're going to go next. The other thing that I really enjoyed about this episode is seeing the relationship and the camaraderie and the friendship develop between Elena and Javier, because Elena at this point is getting ready to get married to Tracy, and she is having problems, finding the perfect dress. Yeah. And I love the fact that Javier's cousin keeps effing it up, and you don't find out why this dress is so important to Elena until the end of the episode. And I also love that sort of heart-to-heart moment that Javier has with Elena, where Elena says, "This is why the dress is so important to me. This is why I've been so hard on you this entire time."
Yeah.
we haven't really gotten those moments with Javier at all. So that was a nice wrinkle that I thought JJ didn't have to add, but I really appreciated it. Also, did you notice that somebody was missing from this episode? Like the I can't remember her name right now because I didn't like it very much. But the British chick, where did that British chick go? Did I totally miss something?
Yeah, she vanished.
You poofed in the midair. So I look. I have nothing against the actress, but I particularly didn't like the character that they wrote for her. That didn't connect with me back then. But that's just neither here nor there. Also, I really you guys are who are listening to this are gonna shoot me, but I loved the shot composition of how this episode was shot with all the dark colors coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the first shot of the episode is basically Felicity sitting in a dark room talking to Sally, and
Yeah.
it kind of mirrors the first shot of the pilot, which was kind of cool. I don't know if you noticed that at all, or I don't know if you noticed the color palette coming back, but I really enjoyed that.
I did because, they had so much color that felt out of place last year. And I think the story goes that when they realized that they were getting canceled, that they knew that they didn't have to please the network anymore, because what were they going to do? Cancel them? So they were like, it was the network who made them color up the show with vibrant colors. So for the final season, they were like, we don't need to please the network anymore, so we can just make the show look the way we wanted to. So they reverted back to a lot of those earth and brown tones. And, it was nice that juxtaposition of, very similar to the first episode, because Matt directed this episode. It was nice that was a mirror image of how the show started. And then we have another couple of decent compositions where Javier, Noel, and Felicity are just hanging out, suntanning on the roof, and just you can feel the heat, and it's so orange and hot. I thought that was a nice, shot wise. They really had the heat waves going, which was crazy. And I really did you brought it up already, that Elena storyline. For the most part, early in the episode, you're like, ugh. She's complaining about everything, and she wants to be perfect. And it's only when we find out why that then it's, a nice emotional beat, and it makes all of that, whining earlier make more sense and hit harder. So that was really nice. And especially because Elena and Javier are the characters who don't really get a lot of moments like that, especially Javier. So for him to have that kind of emotional moment where he gets it, was nice. And then the comic relief throughout this, there are two classic Sean Blumberg moments in this episode that I absolutely loved. The first being that he is mad at Megan because they were trying to play a fun game of who would be your free pass person you would sleep with. And Sean said Elizabeth Hurley, and Megan said Tracy. And I thought that was hilarious that, you can't pick one of the people when you're playing that game. And then also that Sean accidentally eats the wedding cake, and instead of being apologetic and ashamed, he gets angry and defensive. What did you expect? You just left a cake sitting there. I had to eat it. And that was such a classic Sean moment.
No, but I'm like, Greg or Sean. I'm saying in my head, who does that? Who knew? Well, first of all, he had to have known that there was that there was a wedding somewhere in their future, and he had to know that that Elena had been planning it. So he's like, I'm like,
I think it was a subconscious dick move because he's really mad that Megan said Tracy. Because he already knows, now that he thinks that there's sexual tension between Megan and Tracy, he's insecure and he's kind of mad about the whole thing. So I think the cake was him acting out about that.
No, like I said, I think that this episode was a really, really fun watch and a really, really introduction to this final journey that we're going to take with Felicity and her friends. with that being said, if I were to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I really, really liked it. And for that reason, above all, I would give it an 8. Um, with that being said, if you had to rate this episode, Matt, from 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I also go 8 because I like that it set the table for where we're kind of going to go. It shook up some of our main characters and let them get like a fresh perspective. And then it does end with that scene with Noel and Felicity on the roof making out that throws a wrench into everything.
Were you happy about that, or were you expecting them to go past that initial relationship garble?
You know what? It's tough because Scott Foley on this show 90% of the time is a really likable guy. And, Noel and Felicity have like a good banter between each other. He's mostly a good guy. And the fact that Ben is so moody, and even in this episode where like he's so focused on going pre-med, even though, it's not something that really is in the cards for him without a ton of effort, you understand why Felicity feels the distance between them widening. And the fact that he's going to pursue the thing that her parents want her to pursue that she's railing against only makes that divide bigger. So it's one of those things where like, yeah, I'm not necessarily thrilled that they introduced the love triangle thing again, but like I get it. Because Noel, especially in this episode in particular, and Felicity have such a good rapport that like I get how that could happen.
But you have to at least think that Felicity knows where this urge for Ben to become a doctor came from, right?
Yeah, but I think part of the reason that she's not really seeing it is because she's so lost at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I'm not one to not like drama between characters. I'm not one to not enjoy a good ship or two. I mean, for God's sakes, my favorite show of all time is Dawson's Creek. That should tell you all you need to know about how I feel about how I feel about teen drama. But
right.
I felt personally, just me, I felt that Noel and Felicity were way past this. I completely understand why JJ and Matt decided to introduce this final crux into the first episode of the final season, but I didn't necessarily vibe with it all the way.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And, in this episode, they just make out, and I got no problem with that. But we'll talk about more stuff next week, probably, that maybe doesn't feel as natural.
All right, guys. Well, with all that being said, that'll do it for this edition of Radio 815, Episode 7. If you want to come and chat with me and you want to talk about Felicity, or any other TV show, maybe we can come and talk about Star Trek. Why not? You can find me at Twitter. I'm at CreekFanatic88. With that being said, where can the good people find you, Matt, if they want to come and talk to you about whatever?
Yeah, hit me up on Twitter at Matt Crandall. That's the best spot to get a hold of me.
All right, guys. So with all that being said and out of the way, for Matt Crandall, my name is Marcelo Nestroza saying, we'll talk back soon.